When you think everything looks done, you still probably have a couple hours of just refining, where you want to go back over with your charcoal pencils and add short, neat strokes. Sharpen things up, clean things up. And you want to think about where you have the most darks and the most lights, and you use your darkest charcoal pencil in the darkest areas. If you only have one charcoal pencil, you're just going to be coming in with that charcoal pencil in the very darkest areas. That would be your 6B charcoal pencil. But if you have multiple charcoal pencils, then you can start with your darkest charcoal pencil, lay it into the darkest areas, and then come in with your 4B or your medium, 2B, B, etc. B is probably going to be like a light charcoal pencil. So depending on the brand that you are using, and it is very important that you keep them sharp. So you just saw me sharpening with some sandpaper. I'm using short, neat strokes, and then kind of coming back the other direction to fill this in. Sharpening and laying in the values. You can leave some of this texture from the charcoal pencils, and you can smooth some out depending on what you're going for in different areas. You want to constantly, with your kneaded eraser, keep working and erasing out the lightest areas, because charcoal will kind of fall onto those areas. You want to make sure to keep those light. You want to keep working back and forth and adding in your lights and your darks. As you work, you'll notice little areas that maybe you didn't get quite right, or lines that maybe you didn't blend out just quite enough. So it's a constant going back and forth and evaluating what you've done. So there, I blended it a little bit with the tortillon. I'm coming in over this with the charcoal pencil, and in the lighter areas I'm using the lightest charcoal pencil. So just blending over this with really short, neat strokes. It starts to make everything just look more cleaned up and defined. And having done all of the values underneath, it's making everything look smoother. And if I want it to have more of a texture, I can leave the charcoal pencil over top of it without smoothing it in. And sometimes that texture is really nice to leave. And it can add some interest. So just the background itself takes a long time to come in and just get the values accurate. So you notice that sometimes I'm blending out, just kind of easing up as I get into a different value. And as I'm working, I'm still working on the values kind of all over the page. As I'm working, I'm making sure to keep my charcoal pencil sharp. It's a good idea every once in a while to step back away from it. Compare your pictures, see if things are not looking defined enough or if they are looking a little bit uneven. So sometimes you might notice, like in your pencil strokes, that some areas might look a little bit uneven, and so you want to come in and start to work on fixing those up so that you don't have overlap lines. Sometimes you can go back the other direction if that's starting to happen. You can also choose what you want to completely smoothen and what you want to leave with this more textured look. This doesn't happen quickly. This takes quite a bit of time. The refining stage probably takes the longest of any stage. So don't give up too soon. It's kind of a rewarding stage, but it does take quite a bit of time. And it takes patience. You have to keep going back and forth, and you have to keep looking. So I'm erasing to keep this lighter areas as light as I need them to be. And I continue to keep refining and looking and adjusting. And looking for areas that need to be a little bit more dark or the outlines blended out slightly. Because remember that objects do not have outlines. And even on this little plane, it kind of fades from dark to light. I'm defining the little cast shadows around the handle. And as you start to pull out some of these lights and add in some of these darks, you start to see form and volume in it. It looks more realistic. Now I'm adding in white charcoal pencil. You only ever add white charcoal pencils to areas that you've completely erased, and you only put it in the lightest reflections. You do not put it anywhere else, because most of what you have you want to keep. You never let the white mix in to the other charcoal. So it only goes into areas that are completely erased. I've seen more people ruin their drawings with white charcoal than anything else, so be careful. Notice when I was using it, I just used it for a few minutes and then I stopped. Now I'm back to using the regular charcoal pencils, the compressed charcoal. And if I come in with any more white, it's just going to be a little bit into the lightest erased out areas, and it does not mix in with the other stuff. So I would just want to stress that a lot. You be careful with the white. Coming in and just evening things out, and for where it still needs more darks. You need to make sure that you continue to keep looking at your photo. this point you can get fatigue and forget to look at your photo, and that can cause a lot of issues. So make sure that you're consistently looking at your photograph or your actual still life if you're drawing in a classroom. And making sure to get those really dark areas and evening areas out. Now you still can come in with an eraser if some areas got a little bit too dark. It's not as easy to, but it still can be done, and you'll find that it's necessary. Sometimes there's even some light reflections in cast shadows. The picture is white, so that its cast shadow has some lights in it that reflect onto the facade form. I just came in with a little bit more white charcoal pencil again. And remember that you have to be careful with that. It is only going into areas that have been already erased, not anywhere else. It's not being smudged in or blended into anything else. If you do that, you'll get this really weird gray, and that's not what you want. So be careful. So you're still kind of coming around, looking, defining, looking for what areas did you miss? Because it's really easy to kind of miss an area. You're focusing on other areas, and an area is almost done but not quite there. You know, make sure your little details are all defined. So at this point you're kind of jumping around to make sure that you've gotten everything everywhere. Looking for, you know, making sure your background, your ground plane, everything are looking finished. Now you may smooth in some of these areas with your Tertullian, but you might also leave some of it with more of a texture from the charcoal pencil. So that is an aesthetic decision that you need to make. I don't think that you want everything to be completely smooth, so you really have to look at your still life and make a decision about what's going to be the most aesthetic way for me to go with this. And once you do this, you can also kind of come back over certain areas with more charcoal pencil if you need to. So I'm continuing to kind of go back and forth with the charcoal pencils, the Tortillion, making sure I have the right textures that all of the areas are dark enough or smoothed enough or have enough texture.